Jack here, JBF Music and Guitar Lessons. In this quick guitar tricks we're looking at Eric Jonson's Triad Voicings for major, minor chords and also major Add9, simply because they have a very typically Jonson sound. At the end of this tutorial you should have some new chord shapes, an understanding of how they've been constructed, and be able to make your own similar chords using the system. I'll give a quick 101 of how you can do this, then dive a bit deeper into the analysis, looking at every chord from that intro demo. The timestamps are down in the pinned comment and the video's description, so move about as you see fit. To keep this brief for those of you that just want a rough overview, for A major these are probably the two most common shapes. Root, root, third, then third, third, fifth. For more on intervals and interval mapping, check out that tutorial. But if you think about this A major bar chord, or this arpeggio, you can play any three notes from this. The chord should contain at least two of the notes from the triad, but doesn't necessarily need all three. The most simplistic approach is probably to play a note with your thumb, skip a string, then play the next two strings with your fingers, while still conforming to the notes of the arpeggio. So taking a low note with my thumb, missing the A string, then playing the two adjacent strings with the fingers. And for the next shape, thumbing the A string, missing this one, plucking these, same idea. And then one final time, thumbing the D string, missing the G, plucking those. Bonus tip. This is a great way of adding interest to a static chord. Say we had to play a rhythm part over an A major. And I mean, we could apply this to A minor as well. Check out that tutorial for a full breakdown of A minor, the scale, chords and arpeggios with tab. So you might have noticed how one of those last shapes was the same for both chords, and that's because it's just the root and the fifth with no major minor definition. Roots here and the fifth there, which acts as a rather nice segue to get a bit deeper into this topic. If that's not your cup of tea, but your interest in nice sounding chords has been piqued, check out this lesson for 17 more lovely mellow chords with the card up there. To get the most out of this, you really want to be comfortable with the intervals. The video I suggested before will be in that pinned comment if you need to swat up on things a little bit. But yeah, a major triad is root, third and fifth. Any combination in any order is totally legitimate. For A major this would be A, C sharp and E. I'm not going to get too heavily into inverting chords, but in a nutshell, if the lowest note is not the root, then there's some sort of inversion going on. You might have come across slash chords that utilise this. But yeah, bar 1, if you know your cage system, is based on the G shape. It's stacked root, third, fifth, fifth. It sounds fairly dense because the lower strings are all being played. I've gone into this in much more detail on how to clean up your chords. But next we're starting on the third, then there's the fifth, and the root up on the E string. As a bonus chord, we could keep this third, then play the root on the G string, and the fifth up on the B. So I've basically just moved these the shape from here to here. Again, bouncing between these really helps create a sense of movement. Bar 3, third, third, fifth. Then root, root, third. The two most typical shapes, with both of those shapes coming from the E-shaped A major arpeggio. Bar 5 we have the third, root, fifth, from the D-shaped A major scale. I really like this voicing. It's got a real shimmer to it. A great example of how a major chord can sound like more than just a major chord, simply by changing its voicing. In this next bar we have the 5th, 3rd, 5th, root. This also highlights that while the cage system is great for finding new shapes, you don't need to stick to each box. This one merging that D shape that we looked at earlier, and also the C shape for A major. If all this cage system stuff isn't making sense, let me know because I can do a lesson on it or direct you to some good resources. So at the next bar, we've got the 3rd, then we have a root, and a 5th. Bar 7 has a root, 5th, 3rd. And the last bar for A major, we have a 3rd, followed by a root, and another root. And onto the A major Add9s. So this chord is a root, a 3rd, a 5th, and a 9th. In this case, A, C sharp, E, B. Bar 1 we have a root, 3rd, 9th, 5th. Then we have a root, 3rd, 9th. A really very sparse chord voicing, but quite beautiful in its simplicity, I think. The further apart the root and the 9th are, the more consonant or spacious it will sound. Bar 3, we have the 3rd, root, 9th, 5th. Here we've got the root and the 9th right next to each other, so it's creating a major second interval. Which is why this one has a bit more bite than the previous chord. Not that much bite because it's a major Add9, but it's still a little bit more. In bar 4 we have the 5th, 3rd, 5th, 9th. You could also put the 9th in the bass and the 7th fret on the E here. Or even play the root with your thumb at the 5th fret. Again, this sort of thing adds loads of movement. So a bit of a stretch for this next one here. We have the 5th, 9th, 3rd, and 3rd again. So here we have the second interval again, but this time between the 9th and the 3rd. If you think of the 9th as a second here, that might make a bit more sense, you know, the second is before a 3rd. A more typical power chord based shape here, we have the root, 5th, root, 9th. Having no major 3rd, this will also work over a minor Add9. Bar 7, 5th, 3rd, 5th, 9th. The next bar goes root, 5th, 9th, 5th. Essentially an E power chord, but with an A underneath it. But stacking dyads and triads is a whole different topic. So the second last example for A major Add9, we have the root, 5th, 9th, 3rd. And the last bar, 3rd, 5th, 9th, root right up the top there. And onto the A minors. So a minor is root, flat 3rd, 5th. In this case, A, C, E, As a side note, I tried to keep the shapes for major and minor similar, but have swapped strings to make things easier to play. For example, we could use the first A major shape, and just flatten the third, but that's not a very comfortable one to play well, at least for me anyway. With the second major shape, I went third on the A string, third on the B string, root on the high E. Again, we could flatten these thirds to get a minor chord, which I find pretty nasty to play, so I opted to move this flat third on the B string's 1st fret to the G string's 5th. So I suppose the lesson here is to look for different fingerings that can make playing what is essentially the same chord with minimal difference in terms of timbre way easier to play. But yeah, enough of that. We've got the flat third again, 5th. Bar 2, we have the flat third, then root, then 5th. Then we have root, flat third, 5th. Bar 4, a pretty common voicing for Eric Jonson, root, flat third. A really melancholic one. Next, we've got a flat third, root, 5th, flat third. Actually, if you bar your first finger across that 9th fret and lift up your 3rd finger, we can get an A minor Add9, which follows on really nicely from that shape. Bar 6 uses the 5th, that 7th fret on the A string, flat third, and then the root. Then it's flat third, root, 5th. And another voicing that everyone steals, probably best known from Eric Jonson's Cliffs of Dover. Root, 5th, flat third. And we could take this up and down the scale, adjusting the third where necessary. For the correct way to play that, check out my Learn Riffs Now video with the card in the top right hand corner. And finally, at the very end of our wide-spaced interval chord journey, we have this chord, which starts with a flat third, root, and then root. That was Eric Jonson's wide-spaced interval chords. This has been Quick Guitar Tricks, that's the playlist there. For more Eric Jonson tricks, check out this tutorial. But yeah, if you've enjoyed this and want to stay up to date with new content, hit subscribe, click like, that seems to really help the channel out. Share across social media platforms, leave me a comment, and enable notifications by ringing that little bell on the side if you feel so inclined. Cheers guys.